We have a full slate for you on this week's episode of Whether or Not. We have some nature in the news stories on meteors and a new gold rush in California. Colby has the details on a pattern change for the upcoming weekend, and Drew has a feature on lake effect snow. Don't go anywhere. Whether or Not starts right now. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Whether or Not. I am your host, Brian Cizeck.
And I'm your forecaster, Colby McCabe.
Well, Colby, after that winter storm recently passed through, it looks like we're in for a bit of a pattern change this weekend.
That's right, Brian. That storm moved up the coast, ushered in some cold temperatures early in for this weekend. But you'll see with my forecast coming up, we're expecting a bit of a weekend warm-up.
Well, we had near record warmth earlier in the week and then that winter storm later in the week. And now this weekend's looking a little bit warmer. Quite the roller coaster ride.
That's right, Brian. It's been quite a ride, but don't expect it to keep going up and down. As you'll see in my extended forecast, we're looking at more seasonable temperatures as the week progresses.
Well, looking forward to that. And without further ado, let's head to Nature in the News. Early Monday morning, Midwesterners were treated to an extraterrestrial light show. A fiery meteor streaked across the sky, and it was seen as far west as Nebraska and as far east as New York around 1:25 a.m. Central Time. The American Meteor Society, not to be confused with the American Meteorological Society, received over 350 reports from witnesses of the green fireball. NASA meteor experts believe that the fireball originated about 60 miles above West Bend, Wisconsin, and traveled 38,000 miles per hour northeast before finally disintegrating about 21 miles above Lake Michigan. Unfortunately for scientists trying to study the meteor's origins, all of the surviving bits of rock splashed into the lake.
A new kind of fish food aims to advance efforts in sustainable fish farming across the globe. 3 trout farm owners from different professional backgrounds have teamed up to enter an international competition with the goal of creating fish food that is 100% fish-free. Typically, fish food is made by grinding up cheap fish such as sardines and anchovies. However, the large growth in aquaculture, a type of farming that involves natural fertilizer from aquatic animals, requires an excessive amount of these cheap fish, which is not sustainable for the future. This new fish food includes the same nutrients that fish need, but instead contain ingredients such as flax oil, ground up pistachio nuts, and algae. This innovative product provides hope for the future of sustainable aquaculture.
Not only do rivers flow through the landscape, but they also flow through the air. Atmospheric rivers are just what they sound like, a column of water carried aloft by a narrow band of wind. These rivers that run through the air are California's drought busters and can deliver up to 50% of California's water supply in as few as 8 storms per year. Until recently, meteorologists had no way to tell where one of these rivers would strike, how wet it would be, or for how long. Now they have a variety of tools to help provide those answers. One such tool is called the R scale, which categorizes the rivers, much like the Saffir-Simpson scale for hurricanes and the Fujita scale for tornadoes. Another one is a new forecasting model that can better predict the length and intensity of the rivers.
A new kind of gold rush has hit the Sierra Nevada mountains in California, according to the Washington Post. This rush is for the remains of dead trees that perished during the recent 5-year drought that encompassed much of the state. Thanks to a $50 million effort to remove thousands of these dead trees, tree loggers from all parts of the country are moving to California to take advantage of this sudden surge in job availability and salary. The jobs are so stable that many of these tree loggers are permanently relocating their families to the Golden State, despite the recent end to the massive drought. This new influx of jobs shows that even natural disasters can have an upside. A mild weekend with a little bit of rain is in store for your forecast. I'm Colby McCabe, here to give you your central Pennsylvania forecast. On the map here for Friday, we're looking at high pressure in between North and South Carolina. This will be giving us some westerly flow that'll provide some lake effect snow to our north and west. But we're not expecting too much here in State College with some mostly cloudy conditions. Looking into Saturday, we can see that high pressure system moves off to the east, providing us more of a southerly flow. This will increase our temperatures to up to 10 degrees more than what we expect on average this year. The warm front will provide some precipitation to our north and east, but we're not expecting anything here in State College. In fact, it should end up being a very nice Saturday. On Sunday, though, we see this low-pressure system now is out to the west, is scooted on east, and providing us with some rain ahead of this warm front. The wet temperatures will be nicer than Saturday, but you wouldn't think of doing any outdoor activities due to this rain. More specifically, looking at your Friday forecast, we're looking at 28 degrees, some peaks of sun, chance of snow shower, but very small percent. Not expecting anything too much in the form of accumulation, but a passing snow shower or two. Friday, we're looking at seasonable temperatures, Friday night, seasonable temperatures, overcast, with the chance of a snow shower like during the day, but again, not expecting too much there. On Saturday, we're looking at this nice day, 47 degrees, mostly cloudy and mild. It would be a very nice day to go outside if you have any plans. Nothing that you couldn't wear a t-shirt in, but I'd still bring a light jacket. But don't go out on Sunday. We have this, even though it's nicer temperatures with 52 degrees, we have that rain coming in. While we don't expect it to be incredibly heavy, we don't expect that you should enjoy any outdoor activities anytime during this day. And speaking of lake effect snow, here's Drew with a feature on just that.
Being from Chicago, getting to and from school at Penn State is quite a chore for me. A 500-mile, 9-hour drive almost solely along I-80 is my typical routine for this task, and after making this pilgrimage over 30 times, there's one section just southwest of Lake Michigan that is particularly difficult in the winter. Why is this? Well, this is the southernmost tip of Lake Michigan's snowbelt, and as a result, 1/4 of my wintertime journeys are disrupted with heavy lake effect snow. So by now, we've all probably heard about lake effect snow, but very few of us understand how it occurs, and for fair reason. It's a pretty complex phenomenon to someone with no meteorological knowledge. That's why I decided to pay my friend and Penn State alumni Jeff Cornish at WICU 12 in Erie a visit. Maybe he can help us wrap our heads around lake effect snow.
Lake effect snow is a type of snow that forms when Lake Erie or any of the Great Lakes are still unfrozen and relatively warm. And lake effect snow is basically a stripe of snow or a band of snow that is driven by the contrast between relatively warm water and much colder air overhead. And sometimes it happens because of the ocean, or there's sea effect snow. Parts of Japan get snow from a similar process, but here in the United States we talk primarily about lake effect snow, with the Great Lakes generally staying a lot warmer than the air temperature as we transition from fall into especially the first half of wintertime. Erie is in a pretty good spot for lake effect snow because we are right on Lake Erie. Now Toledo's on Lake Erie as well, but we're on the downwind side of Lake Erie, which really helps. And another thing that helps is our latitude. If Lake Erie was down the latitude of Nebraska, it wouldn't be as cold as it is here. So we're in a pretty good spot for lake effect snow. Buffalo is also in the lake effect snow belt, but the city of Buffalo is just barely east or northeast of the tip of the lake. And here in Erie, we have the whole stretch of our coastline on Lake Erie. So we tend to pick up a lot of lake effect snow with varying wind directions. It could be from the north, could be from the west, or anything in between.
The amount of lake effect snow is very hard for meteorologists to predict since there are so many different factors at play. Thankfully, Jeff is here to explain what conditions create difference between a historically huge snowfall event and a measly commonplace snow flurry.
A few conditions that will impact the amount of snow you get with lake effect snow are the lake water temperature. In late November or early December, Lake Erie might still be 45 degrees. As we talk now in the middle of winter, there's not much ice out there right now because of a recent warm spell, but the water temp is 35. And a 35-degree body of water does not provide as much firepower for lake effect snow as a 45-degree body of water. So the warmer the water, the better off you are in producing significant lake effect snow. A huge variable that changes day to day and hour to hour is the temperature overhead. The colder the air is, the greater the contrast would be between that warmer water and the colder air overhead. And then another big factor is the fetch, which is a word that meteorologists use to refer to the number of miles the streamline of air would cross across the body of water before reaching land. So for Lake Erie, with a north-northwest wind, you have a shorter fetch. It comes right across from Canada the short way, and that will produce some lake effect snow, but it won't be as significant as some might remember in November of 2014. Some of the south towns of Buffalo had 95 inches in 1 week's time, and that wind was a west-southwest wind, and it ran almost the entire length from Toledo right into the southern suburbs of Buffalo, and that's about as long as a fetch as you can get on Lake Erie.
So why does this difference between lake temperature and upper air temperature matter so much? Hopefully Jeff can spread some light on this inquiry.
So the greater the contrast between the water temperature and the air, usually at about 850 millibars, which for all intents and purposes is about 5,000 feet overhead, where maybe a very small airplane would fly. The greater that contrast, the more fuel there will be for lake effect snow. Really what we're talking about is convection, and the stronger the contrast between the cold over the warm, the more you're going to be able to get that air to rise. And as the air rises, it gets colder as it rises. Colder air can contain less water vapor, and that will lead to more condensation, more cloud formation, and eventually saturation of the clouds with snowflakes. The general rule of thumb is about a 13-degree difference Celsius between the water temperature and the air temperature at about 850 millibars, which is about 5,000 feet up, is enough. A 13-degree difference there is enough to get lake effect snow going. If you have an 8-degree difference, you'll get at least lake effect clouds. If you have a 20-degree difference, you're going to get some serious lake effect snow.
So there you have it. Lake effect snow occurs when cold air overhead passes over relatively warm bodies of water. This temperature difference causes a forcing of the moist lake air upwards, which eventually condenses and then tumbles down to the ground as snow on the downwind side of the water. And just like that, we have solved another spectacular meteorological mystery.
I'm Colby McCabe here to give you your extended forecast for the central Pennsylvania region, but first let's go over the weekend recap of what we discussed earlier. Friday, we're looking at a high of about 28 degrees with peaks of sun with a very slight chance of some snow showers due to that lake effect enhanced, and 24 degrees for the low, so much more seasonable. Saturday, however, is looking like a pretty nice day. 47 degrees with some sun, mostly cloudy though, and a high of 47, closer to 50. It's pretty mild, so you might want to think about going outside. However, on Sunday, nicer temperatures, 52 degrees, but with some rain, so you wouldn't want to think about doing any outdoor activities, though it won't be that much. We're not expecting that'll be a good day for that. Looking at your extended forecast, we can see a general trend of mild temperatures in the mid-40s, decreasing down to below average, which is about 35 degrees this time of year. Monday, we're expecting partly sunny conditions, as well as Tuesday and Wednesday, with highs dipping from 44 to about 39 on Wednesday. Thursday, we're looking at a chance of some snow showers, but very slight, with about seasonable temperatures of 35. And Friday, mostly cloudy with a high of about 33 degrees.
Well, Colby, it looks like we're in store for a fairly seasonable week next week, all things considered.
That's right, Brian. As you saw with the extended, we're looking at a mild start to the week with more seasonable temperatures expected later on, and no snowmakers in question.
Right, and speaking of snowmakers, earlier in the show, we asked you what was the largest one-day snowfall total for State College, Pennsylvania on record. A, 12 inches, B, 15 inches, C, 23 inches, and D, 27 inches. If you guessed D, you are correct.
On March 3rd, 1993, a snowstorm similar to this one Wednesday evening came through North Carolina and Virginia before traveling up the coast of Maine.
Right, and this low pressure system brought a lot of moisture into the air over central Pennsylvania, and along with the lift provided by the low, State College had all the ingredients for a huge snowstorm.
It was certainly a snowstorm to remember.
It really was, Colby. Well, that's all we have for you on this episode of Whether or Not. I'm your host, Brian Cizeck.
I'm your forecaster, Colby McCabe.
Have a fantastic weekend.